Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to share with you the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her mother trying to make a living. That morning, Huyen took little Micah to a construction site in the village to work as an assistant laborer for a day. She still held her young daughter tightly in her arms, with the hope of earning some money. Today was a special day for Micah, so Huyen wanted to save a small amount of money to buy her a simple gift and prepare a better meal than usual. Huyen and Appos. T helped but feel sympathetic. She put down her hat and asked, and quote, "The masonry work is very hard, my dear. You have to carry bricks, shovel sand, and mix mortar from morning till noon. Can you do it?" End quote. Huyen hugged Micah close to her chest and nodded softly and quote, "Yes, I can mind Appos I only want to work for one morning. Today is a special day for my daughter, and I want to earn some money for her." End quote. Hearing this, the lady boss looked at Micah, who was obediently nestled in her mother and Appos' arms. Seeing her sincere gaze and her diligent demeanor, she softened her tone and quote, "If you and Appos be made up your mind, then give it a try. But if you and Appos too tired, you must rest. Don and Appos push yourself." End quote. Huyen bowed her head, thanking her profusely. A light, relieved smile appeared on her sweat-dappled face. Huyen found a flat and safe corner and gently sat baby Micah down. She told her to sit quietly and play, and not to run into the area where people were working. Micah obediently nodded and looked at her mother. Then Huyen approached the pile of bricks nearby. She bent down to pick up each red brick, carefully stacking them neatly. She used all her strength to lift them quickly, and brought them to the construction workers working in front. From one trip to another, Huyen returned to the pile of bricks, continued stacking and transporting them away. Sweat gradually dripped down her forehead, and her hands, usually accustomed to farming work, turned red from the heavy bricks. However, every time she looked back and saw Micah sitting quietly in a corner, occasionally waving and calling out, and quote, "Mom," end quote, Huyen would smile and feel more motivated. She silently worked hard, hoping that by the end of the day she would earn a little wage to save for her little daughter. Little Micah sat obediently beside me on a small plank. The girl swung her tiny legs and softly sang nursery rhymes in a clear, childish voice. The naive songs, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, echoed amidst the sounds of shoveling sand and stones clattering together. Occasionally, Micah clapped along to the rhythm, smiling as she looked at her mother working. Every time she heard her daughter and Appos' singing, Huyen would turn to look, a gentle smile appearing on her tired face. It seemed that the heavy bricks also felt lighter when Micah and Appos' cheerful singing was always nearby. Seeing that the mortar bucket of the construction workers was almost empty, Huyen quickly stepped forward. Without waiting for anyone to remind her, she grabbed a shovel and scooped each shovelful of mortar from the small cart next to her and poured it onto the construction workers and Appos' area. Her movements were a bit clumsy, but she was very diligent and careful. The continuous shoveling made Huyen and Appos' arms tired and sweaty, soaking her back. She still persisted in filling each bucket with mortar and pushing it to where the workers were building the wall. One of the workers, watching Huyen work tirelessly, said, end quote, "This girl is really hard-working. She and Appos' so quick for someone just starting." End quote. Huyen just smiled, wiped the sweat from her forehead, and continued her work. She knows she is not as healthy as the experienced workers, but she wants to do her best this morning. Little Micah still sits obediently. Seeing her mother struggling with the mortar, the girl immediately stands up, claps her tiny hands and loudly calls out, end quote, "Go Mom," end quote. That innocent call makes everyone laugh. Huyen turns to look at her daughter, her eyes full of love. She gently nods at Micah and continues to scoop the last shovels of mortar. The mortar in the small turtle-shaped vehicle ran out, and Huyen hurriedly pushed the cart back to the concrete mixer area. The steady sound of the machine echoed across the construction site, with each batch of freshly mixed mortar still steaming warm as it was poured out. Huyen grabbed a shovel to scoop mortar into the cart, then tightly gripped the handles, exerting all her strength to push the heavy cart over the uneven sandy ground. The short path was not easy to traverse. The wheels sank into soft spots in the earth, causing Huyen to lean forward, trying to maintain her balance. Sweat streamed down her cheeks, soaking her hair, but she persisted in pushing the cart all the way to where the workers were building the wall. End quote. Here and oppose, es mortar everyone. End quote. Huyen cheerfully called out. The workers quickly took the mortar to continue their work. Before she had a chance to rest, Huyen turned the cart back to the mixer, filling another load. Like this, she diligently ran back and forth between the mixer and the construction site. Little Micah still sits obediently, watching her mother work. Micah takes the Huyen water bottle and goes out to drink. Occasionally, the girl waves her hand and smiles brightly, making Huyen forget the fatigue in her legs and arms. Seeing the neighboring brick pile beside the ongoing wall construction was empty, Huyen immediately placed her tricycle down and quickly returned to the pile of materials. She bent down to carry each stack of bricks, holding them close to her body to keep her balance, then brought them to the workers. The red bricks, though not too large, made her hands tired when carried in large quantities. Huyen kept walking back and forth tirelessly. Every time she set down bricks, she would go back to fetch more. Dust covered her pants and sandals, sweat soaked her back, but she still tried to work quickly to avoid interrupting everyone's work. She finished all the necessary bricks for the workers, and Huyen turned to the pile of gravel beside her. She held a shovel, diligently scooping each shovelful of gravel onto the turtle cart to transport it to the concrete mixing area. The continuous work since morning had already made her shoulders start to ache, but Huyen still tried to keep going without stopping. Seeing her mother working hard, little Micah ran over quickly. The girl bent down to pick up small stones to help her mother. Seeing that, Huyen was startled and quickly put down her shovel, then stepped forward. It and oppose. Es not safe, dear. It and oppose. Es very dangerous here. She gently picked up Micah, brushed off the dust on her clothes and kissed her on the forehead. Surrounded by turtle carts, building materials and many people working, Huyen was afraid that her child might accidentally trip or be hit by falling objects. She carried Micah back to the safe spot where she had sat initially, and she advised, "Stay here and be good, wait until I finish, then we will go home together." Seeing Micah keep running after me again and again, Huyen felt both affection and worry. The construction site has many rickety vehicles, bricks, stones, and machinery in operation. A small mistake could be dangerous. Every time she turned back and saw the child standing near the work area, her heart tightened with concern. Finally, Huyen decided to take the cloth carrier she always carried. She gently picked up Micah, placed him into the carrier on her back, and tied it securely. Micah happily snuggled into her back, his small hands hugging Huyen and Appo's neck, his face beaming as if he had just received a reward. Seeing a worker standing by a brick wall, carefully tying steel rods together with wire in preparation for the next step, Huyen quickly approached. Even though she was still carrying Micah on her back, she didn't hesitate to ask, "Uncle, can I help you?" The worker looked at Huyen and nodded with a smile. Huyen took the coil of wire, skillfully cutting short pieces according to the instructions. The worker held the steel rods in place, while Huyen threaded the wire through the joints and twisted it tightly. The job required more dexterity than strength, so she worked very carefully. Micah sat in the carrier, curious, watching her nimble hands at work. The girl occasionally pointed at the steel wires and chattered a few words, making both Huyen and the worker laugh. She and Appo's so well behaved, following her mother all morning without making a fuss, the worker said. Huyen looked down at her daughter and gently replied, Yes, probably knowing that her mother is working, she and Apos S been better than usual. The mother and daughter continued to stay beside the worker. The steel wire knots were gradually secured, neat and tight. Looking around the area where the steel is being tied, Huyen saw that this place was quite tidy, with no machinery operating or heavy materials moving back and forth. She gently took off the carrier, carried Micah to a clean corner next to the brick wall, and took out a small candy from her pocket. Sit here and eat your candy, don't run away. Micah happily accepted the candy, obediently sat down. The girl chewed on the candy while swinging her legs, occasionally looking up at her mother working. Feeling assured that her child was in a safe place, Huyen turned back to continue helping the worker. She held the pre-cut steel wires, skillfully threaded them through the iron bars, and then tightly twisted them with pliers. Her hands moved swiftly, with each joint being securely and neatly fastened. After finishing tying the steel wire, Huyen quickly returned to the mortar mixing area. She held a shovel full of mortar and bent down to lift it. The heavy bucket caused her arms to tremble with fatigue, but Huyen clenched her teeth and tried her best. Her small figure moved slowly across the rough construction site. She tilted completely to one side to keep her balance against the weight of the bucket. Her previously injured leg was temporarily wrapped with a piece of cloth. After hours of continuous walking, the bandage was covered in dirt and a faint red stain. Every step made her toes throb painfully, causing her to limp. Despite that, Huyen did not stop. She carefully carried the bucket of mortar to where the workers were working, and then went back to get another bucket. Sweat streamed down her face, soaking her hair and collar. Several times the workers told her to rest for a while, but Huyen just smiled, and quote, "No problem, uncle, I can do it." End quote. Everyone in Apos S lunchtime call echoed throughout the construction site. The workers took turns putting down their tools, looking for a place to rest after a hard morning in Apos S work. However, Huyen still stood beside the remaining pile of bricks, quickly wiping sweat from her forehead with her hand, then bending down to carry another stack of bricks. Huyen, take a break. It and Apos S time to rest. Called a worker after her. Huyen smiled. Yes, I and Apos I'll move these stacks first, uncle. She then hugged the pile of bricks tightly to her chest. Her hands were exhausted, her shoulders sore from working continuously since morning, and her injured toes still throbbed each time she stepped on the ground. Her body slightly tilted due to the weight of the bricks in her arms, but she still slowly walked toward the wall she was building. After finishing one stack, Huyen returned to fetch another. Only when the remaining bricks had been delivered to the required place did she breathe a sigh of relief. Placing the final bricks, Huyen leaned on her knees, took a deep breath to regain her strength. Seeing the work temporarily completed, she turned to Micah. Seeing her daughter waiting with an innocent smile, Huyen also smiled in response. Although her body was exhausted and her legs sore, she still felt happy because she had tried her best on this special morning. Huyen called Micah back and took her small hand. The mother and daughter together pulled the turtle cart covered in mortar and dirt to the small ditch beside the construction site. When they arrived, Huyen bent down and used a plastic scoop to pour clear water into the cart. The water flowed down, carrying away dry mortar patches and dirt stuck on the sides of the cart. She then took an old brush and diligently scrubbed every corner to clean it thoroughly. Micah stood beside her, attentively watching her mother work. Occasionally, she pointed to a spot still muddy and babbled, and quote, "Mommy, here too." End quote. Huyen laughed. End quote. "Yes, thank you, I see it now." End quote. After saying that, she continued scrubbing. Her hands had turned red from working all morning, but she kept washing. After a while, the turtle cart was much cleaner, with no more stubborn mortar patches sticking to it as before. After washing the turtle cart, Huyen and Micah slowly pushed the cart back to the construction site. The mother and daughter carefully returned the cart to its original position and neatly arranged it alongside other tools. Huyen also looked around to make sure everything was tidy before leaving. Then she carried Micah to the homeowner. Huyen and Appo's clothes were stained with dirt and cement mortar, her hair slightly messy from a morning of non-stop work. Her injured toes were still wrapped in a piece of cloth that had darkened with dirt. Seeing the mother and daughter arrive, the homeowner looked up and smiled. "Are you finished?" "Yes, I am done, ma and Appo's am." The homeowner looked at Huyen for a moment, then handed her the payment. "You worked very diligently. You and Appo's V been helping since morning, doing everything and cleaning up before leaving. Here is your payment." Huyen took the money with both hands and bowed her head to thank her. "Thank you very much, ma and Appo's am." She looked at the money in her hand, a feeling of indescribable joy rising in her heart. It was the result of a hard morning, of heavy loads of bricks, buckets of mortar, stone trucks, and even limping steps due to wounds. Next to her, Micah curiously looked up at her mother. Huyen smiled gently, patting her daughter and Appo's head and said, "Today Micah was very good. Let and Appo's go home." Huyen carried Micah away from the construction site when the sun was already high. After a hard morning of work, her clothes were still covered in cement dust, and her hands were red from carrying bricks and spreading mortar. Despite her tired body, a gentle smile still appeared on Huyen and Appo's lips. She embraced her daughter and slowly walked toward the small market at the edge of the village. The road into the market was busier than usual. Micah was nestled in her mother and Appo's arms, her curious eyes gazing at the colorful stalls, the lively sounds of vendors selling their goods, the fragrant smell of baked bread, and the toys hanging in front of the stalls made the girl excitedly look around everywhere. Huyen gently tightened her arms around her child. Inside her shirt pocket was the money she had earned after a whole morning of work. She quietly calculated her expenses carefully, but still wanted to set aside a small part to buy Micah a gift. It could be a fabric doll, a pretty hair clip, or simply a sweet treat that the girl loved. Mother and daughter stopped in front of a children and Appo's clothing stall in the market. Seeing the colorful clothes neatly hung up, Huyen decided to use the money she just earned to buy Micah a new outfit. After some choosing, she picked out a cute pink set and gently tried it on the girl. She carefully adjusted the collar, smoothed out the folds, and stepped back to admire her daughter. The outfit fit Micah and Appo's petite figure perfectly, and the light pink color made her face look even more adorable and lively. Micah happily spun around in front of her mother and giggled. Seeing her radiant smile, Huyen knew she had made the right choice. Without hesitation, she decided to buy this outfit. Huyen carried Micah to the counter, carefully took out the money she had just earned to pay the shop owner. After receiving the bag and thanking the seller, she took her daughter and Appo's small hand. The mother and daughter walked a little further, and then stopped in front of a small birthday cake shop by the market. Through the glass window, Huyen saw colorful cakes neatly displayed in the cabinet. She carried Micah inside, her gentle eyes resting on a tiny pink cream cake, decorated with adorable whipped flowers. Huyen smiled and pointed at the cake. "Miss, I would like to take this pink cake, please." The shopkeeper carefully wrapped the cake in a box. Huyen gently received it as a precious gift. The cake was not large nor elaborate, but it was a gift bought with the hard-earned money she had worked for all morning. Micah looked curiously at the cake box in her mother and Appo's hand. "Up, Mom, cake?" Huyen gently patted her daughter and Appo's head and smiled. "Yes, Micah and Appo's birthday cake." The little girl looked confused for a few seconds and then smiled brightly. "Today is Micah and Appo's birthday. Because life is still full of difficulties, Huyen couldn't and Appo's organize a big party or buy expensive gifts. But she still wanted her daughter to have a perfect birthday, with new clothes, a small birthday cake, and her mother and Appo's love by her side. Leaving the bakery, Huyen carried Micah in her arms, one hand holding a tiny pink cake. Mother and daughter slowly walked along the way home. Under the gentle sunlight, Micah and Appo's smile was brighter than ever, and Huyen felt that all the hardships of the day had become truly meaningful. When she arrived home in the midday sun, Huyen gently placed a small pink birthday cake on the wooden table in the middle of the house. The cake was simple, but she cherished it as a precious gift for Micah on this special day. Little Micah stood nearby, her eyes bright as she looked at the cake, then smiled up at her mother. Huyen patted her daughter and Appo's head, told her to sit still, and then carried the shopping bags into the house. She carefully put the new clothes into the small wardrobe, organizing everything neatly. Micah still obediently sat beside the small table. The girl rested her chin on her hand, gazing at the pink birthday cake in front of her, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Occasionally, Micah leaned in close to the cake to admire the decorated frosting on top, then smiled with delight. Inside the small house, the atmosphere became truly warm. Although the cake was not large and there weren't and Appo's many gifts for Micah, this was a very special day. She kept anxiously waiting for her mother to come out of the house so they could light the shimmering candles together. In her innocent mind, Micah only wished to sit next to her mother, sing the birthday song, and cut the small cake her mother had saved money to buy for her. That was the happiest gift for her. Seeing that the weather had started to cool down, Huyen took Micah and Appo's hand and led her to the small bamboo bridge across the canal in front of the house. The clear water flowed quietly beneath, reflecting the midday sunlight. Huyen sat down at the edge of the bridge, gently scooping water to wash Micah and Appo's tiny hands. She carefully scrubbed away the remaining dirt on her child and Appo's hands after a long day. After washing her hands, Huyen took a clean towel she brought and gently wiped Micah and Appo's face. The girl obediently stood still, occasionally giggling when the soft towel touched her cheek. Then Huyen continued to wash Micah and Appo's feet. She lifted each small foot, rinsed it thoroughly with cool water, and dried it carefully. The dirt-stained feet from earlier had become clean. Micah happily swung her feet on the bamboo bridge, while Huyen smiled at her, feeling that all the day and Appo's hardship seemed to lighten considerably. She took her slippers down to the water, gently scrubbing each remaining dirt stain with her hand. The canal water rippled and lapped around her thin hands. After washing her slippers, Huyen scooped up water to wash her feet. One toe still had an unhealed wound, and each time the water touched it, she winced slightly from the pain. However, Huyen quietly continued, carefully cleaning the dirt around the wound and then gently wiping away the remaining dirt. Micah sat beside her, watching her mother with a worried look. Seeing this, Huyen smiled softly, gently patting her child and Appo's head to reassure her. The wind blew through the reeds along the canal, bringing a cool, refreshing feeling. After washing her feet, Huyen stood up, put on her clean slippers and took Micah and Appo's hand to go back home, where a small pink birthday cake was still waiting for them in the peaceful evening light. Huyen opened the paper bag and took out the new clothes she had just bought for Micah. She gently helped her change out of the worn-out, faded outfit. The new pink dress fit snugly around the small figure of the girl, making Micah look even cuter. After changing, Micah stood in front of her mother, her eyes sparkling with delight. She stretched out her arms, then spun around once, twice, 3 times in the small house. The dress fluttered lightly with each step, making Micah giggle uncontrollably. Huyen looked at her child, her face glowing with happiness. She clapped her hands in encouragement, and quote, "So beautiful. My daughter is so pretty." End quote. Hearing her mother's praise, Micah was even happier. She spun a few more times before running to hug Huyen. Huyen laughed, lifting her up and gently kissing her on the forehead. In the simple house, the sound of the mother and daughter's laughter echoed warmly. For Huyen, seeing Micah happy in her new clothes was the most precious gift of the day. Huyen took the small comb placed on the table and sat Micah down in front of her. She gently combed each soft lock of hair for Micah, carefully detangling the knots. Huyen skillfully gathered the hair and tied it into two cute little ponytails. After finishing the hair, Huyen turned Micah around to admire her. She smiled contentedly, gently stroking her daughter and Appo's cheek. "My little girl looks like a princess today." Micah immediately grinned from ear to ear, running around the house to show off her new hairstyle tied by her mother. In the corner of the room, the small dog was lying obediently, wagging its tail. Huyen sat down beside it, reaching out to stroke its soft fur. The dog immediately rolled onto its back, its tail wagging constantly on the floor as if to show off. Huyen chuckled, gently scratching under its chin and rubbing its small belly. Huyen looked around the small house and gently carried the wooden table to the center of the room. She placed the pink birthday cake neatly on the table and carefully adjusted the cake box to make it look perfect. Sunlight filtered through the window, shining on the small cake, making it stand out even more. Seeing her mother preparing, Micah quickly ran to get her small chair. The girl hugged the chair with both hands and clumsily brought it over to place next to the table. Once done, Micah looked up at her mother with an excited expression, her eyes fixed on the birthday cake. Huyen smiled, pulled the chair closer for her daughter to sit. The small dog also curiously ran over, sitting beside the two of them, its tail wagging non-stop. The simple house suddenly felt unusually warm. In the middle of the room there was only a small table, a modest birthday cake, and 3 members gathered together, but the joy seemed to fill every gaze and smile. Huyen looked at the small house, which had been tidied up neatly, and gently smiled. She took off her dusty outer coat after a long day, and hung it neatly on a nail on the wall. Then she took a small pretty birthday hat she bought at the bakery and gently placed it on Micah and Appo's head. The hat tilted slightly to one side, making Micah giggle. Huyen adjusted it to straighten it, and then looked at her child for a long time. In her new clothes, with her hair neatly tied and the birthday hat on her head, Micah looked truly adorable. Huyen opened the cake box, inserted small candles onto the cake, and lit them. The flickering candles cast a warm glow in the simple house. She pulled a chair to sit beside her daughter, wrapping her arms gently around Micah and Appo's shoulders. Mother and daughter looked at the burning candles and sang, "Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday, Micah! Happy birthday!" Huyen and Appo's gentle voice blended with Micah and Appo's childish singing. The small dog also sat nearby, tilting its head as if participating in the special celebration. When the song ended, mother and daughter leaned down to blow out the candles. In that moment, as the candles went out, the house was still filled with the light of joy, love, and the simple happiness that Huyen dedicated to her daughter on this special birthday. Huyen held a small plastic knife, carefully cutting the birthday cake into 2 parts. She placed one piece of cake on a small plate and pushed it towards Micah. "Eat it, dear." Micah happily accepted it, her eyes shining with delight. The girl took bites of the soft, sweet cake and put them into her mouth, eating so happily that a bit of pink cream was still on the corner of her lips. Occasionally, Micah would lift her head to smile at her mother, and then continue enjoying her birthday cake. Huyen also cut herself a piece of cake, but she didn't and Appo's rushed to eat it. She just sat quietly beside her, watching her daughter. A gentle smile appeared on her sun-kissed face from the sun and wind. Seeing Micah eating happily and joyfully on her birthday, she felt her heart overflowing with happiness. Seeing my mother sitting and smiling at me without eating the cake, Micah quickly urged "Mom, eat the cake." Saying that, the girl scooped a small piece of cake and held it out in front of Huyen. Seeing her daughter and Appo's hopeful eyes, Huyen gently leaned down and ate the piece of cake Micah offered. Seeing her mother eat, Micah happily smiled with her eyes wide open. Gradually quieted down, Micah happily sat by the table, enjoying the remaining pieces of cake. Huyen sat watching her child, but inside, a surge of emotions suddenly welled up. The difficult days, the moments of scarcity, the sleepless nights worrying about the lives of her and her daughter, all gradually appeared in her mind. Huyen and Appo's eyes gradually reddened. She tried to smile so that Micah wouldn't and Appo's notice anything unusual. Afraid that her child would see her crying and become worried, Huyen quietly stood up. She walked to the corner of the kitchen, covering her face with her hand. Silent tears fell down. Huyen was not crying out of despair, but out of emotion. Seeing Micah growing up healthy, obedient, and loving her mother, she felt that all the hardships she had endured had become worthwhile. Seeing her mother go into the corner of the kitchen and quietly wipe away tears, Micah put down her spoon on the table. She cut a small piece of cake, carefully scooped it onto the spoon, and took small steps to her mother. "Don and Appo's cry anymore, Mom?" The childish voice made Huyen turn around. In front of her was Micah holding up a spoonful of cake, her eyes full of worry. The girl gently fed her mother a piece of cake, just like she did earlier at the birthday table. Huyen choked up as she ate the piece of cake, tears still lingering in the corners of her eyes. She bent down and hugged Micah tightly. Micah also wrapped her tiny arms around her mother, pressing her head against her mother and Appo's chest as if to comfort all her sadness. The mother and daughter embraced like that for a long time. Then Huyen wiped her tears, smiled at her daughter. "It and Appo's okay, Mom. Thank you, my dear." Micah nodded, took her mother and Appo's hand and pulled her back to the table in the middle of the house. Under the warm yellow light, the mother and daughter sat together beside the small birthday cake. Micah and Appo's laughter gradually replaced the tears, and the small house was filled once again with love on that memorable birthday. In the afternoon, after a short nap, Huyen woke up as the gentle golden sunlight was spreading across the front yard. She stepped outside, walking to the lush vegetable beds she cared for every day. Bending down, Huyen gently plucked each tender sprout still dew-covered. Nearby, Micah had just woken up and happily followed her mother to the garden. The girl stood on the small path, curious as she watched her mother work, then plucked a small flower from the bush beside her to admire. Occasionally, Micah ran over to her mother, chattering about silly stories that made Huyen smile. In the cool green garden in front of the thatched roof house, mother and daughter gathered together in the peaceful atmosphere of a countryside afternoon. The singing of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the late afternoon sunlight made the scene feel warm and tranquil. After harvesting the tender green Malabar spinach, Huyen moved to the nearby water spinach bed. She bent down, her hands skillfully plucking each long, plump stalk and gently bundling them into neat bunches. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead, but Huyen remained focused on her work. When she had collected enough vegetables, she sat down by the garden path, took the prepared strips of twine, and carefully tied each bunch. Every bundle of vegetables was smoothed and tied snugly to look tidy and easy to carry to the market. Micah stood nearby, curiously observing. Occasionally, she helped her mother pick up the fallen stalks and handed them to her. Huyen smiled, patting her daughter and Appo's head and continued tying the final bunches. Soon, beside her, the bundles of Malabar spinach and water spinach were neatly arranged. Huyen stood up, brushed off the dirt on her pants, and entered the porch to pick up the familiar bamboo basket. The basket had accompanied her through many trips to the garden and the market. Its handles were polished from years of use. Carrying the basket to the garden, Huyen carefully arranged each bunch of Malabar spinach and water spinach inside. She placed them neatly to prevent damage. The bunches of lush green vegetables gradually filled the bamboo basket. When the last bunch was placed in, the basket was full, looking very beautiful and fresh. Huyen looked at her labor and Appo's chungwa and smiled softly. Nearby, Micah curiously leaned her head to look into the vegetable basket, delighted to see the large basket filled with green bunches. The evening breeze gently blew through the garden, carrying the scent of earth and fresh vegetables. Mother and daughter stood in the small garden, admiring the full basket of the afternoon's diligent work. Huyen carried the familiar bamboo broom and walked around the yard. She carefully swept the fallen dry leaves in front of the house, gathered them into a small pile, and then neatly moved them aside. Soon the yard was clean and airy under the gentle afternoon sunlight. After finishing, Huyen entered the house, closed the door, and hurriedly took down her coat and the bamboo conical hat hanging on the wall. She put on her shirt, put on the hat, and then bent down to put a small hat on Micah. Carefully adjusting the hat strap for her child, Huyen smiled. "Let and Appos go to the market with Mom." Micah happily nodded, taking her small hand to hold her mother and Appos' hand. Huyen carried a bamboo basket full of vegetables on her shoulder, while Micah trotted happily beside her. The mother and daughter held hands as they walked along the familiar countryside road leading to the market. The golden evening light stretched across the path, a gentle breeze blew through the lush green fields, and Micah and Appos' cheerful laughter echoed along the entire journey. When the late afternoon was just cool, Huyen went to the market and looked for a familiar corner under the shade of a tree along the walkway. She placed her woven basket on the ground and carefully spread out the cloth she brought in front of her. Then Huyen took out each bunch of vegetables from the basket one by one. The tender green Malabar spinach bunches were arranged in a row, while the fresh green water spinach bunches were neatly placed beside them. She tidied each bunch of vegetables to look attractive, adjusted the slightly crooked leaves, and arranged them neatly on the cloth. Before long, Huyen and Appos' small vegetable stall was neatly arranged. The fresh green bunches stood out amid the busy evening market. Micah sat beside her mother on a small chair, her curious eyes watching the passing crowd. Huyen smiled as she looked at the vegetable bunches in front of her, hoping to sell everything to earn more money to support their lives. Just as Huyen was displaying the last bunches of vegetables on her small stall, she saw a customer stop in front of it. The customer bent down to look and quickly selected a few of the freshest bunches. Huyen happily weighed the vegetables and thanked the customer as they left. Not long after, the second and third customers also came to buy. They looked at the lush green bunches, with leaves still fresh and tender as if just plucked from the garden, so they felt very assured. When the fourth customer arrived, she even complimented, and quote, "The vegetables look so fresh, they must be homegrown, right?" End quote. Huyen nodded with a smile. End quote. "Yes, I take care of them myself in the garden every morning and evening." End quote. Hearing that, the customer immediately chose a few more bunches to take home. In just a short while, Huyen and Appos' small vegetable stall had noticeably emptied. Perhaps everyone sensed that these were clean, carefully cultivated vegetables, so everyone felt confident to buy them for their family meals. Sitting beside her, Micah was very happy to see customers constantly coming to buy. The girl looked at her mother with a bright smile, and Huyen also felt a sense of relief. The bunches of vegetables she had cultivated herself were well received by everyone, making her efforts truly meaningful. Not long after, the last bunches of vegetables on the mat were gradually sold out. Seeing the empty bamboo basket, Huyen smiled contentedly. The effort she put into caring for the garden all these days finally paid off. Micah sat beside her clapping happily when she saw her mother sell all the vegetables. Huyen patted her child and Appos' head and then began to tidy up. She folded the mat neatly, put it into the bamboo basket, and checked if she had forgotten anything. Once finished, she slung the basket over her shoulder and took Micah and Appos' small hand. Mother and daughter leave the market as the evening light turns a soft orange. On the familiar countryside road, Huyen and Micah walk and chat happily. The evening breeze gently blows through the green rice fields on both sides of the road. After a successful day of selling, Huyen and Appos' steps seem lighter. Micah happily skips beside her mother, occasionally looking up and smiling brightly. Under the peaceful sunset, mother and daughter hold hands and return to their cozy little house, carrying the joy of a simple yet meaningful day of work. When she arrived home, Huyen placed the bamboo basket on the porch and took out the key to open the door. As the door just slightly opened, the small dog from inside rushed out. It wagged its tail continuously, running around the two mother and daughter's legs as if to welcome them after an afternoon away from home. Micah burst into giggles, sitting down to hug the dog. It immediately nuzzled its head into the girl's lap and jumped around Micah before coming to Huyen. Huyen bent down to gently stroke its head. The dog softly barked a few times in response, its tail still wagging non-stop. Seeing this scene, Huyen smiled happily. She carried the basket into the house, while Micah held one of the small dog's front legs, walking and chattering as she told it about how the mother and daughter had sold all the vegetables at the market. Tidy up the bamboo basket and the items brought back from the market, and put them in their proper places. Huyen walks to the corner of the kitchen. There is still a layer of fine ash on the floor from previous cooking sessions. She takes a small shovel, carefully scoops the ash and pours it into a plastic bin placed beside her. When the bin is full, Huyen carries it out to the front garden. She walks along the vegetable beds, gently spreading the ash around the roots of Malabar spinach, water spinach, and other vegetables. Kitchen ash is a natural fertilizer that Huyen often uses to help the plants grow better. Micah and the small dog also follow eagerly. The girl curiously watches her mother spread the ash, while the dog runs around the vegetable beds, sniffing the roots and lying down on the cool ground. Huyen placed the urn down and went to get the familiar blue plastic bucket. She stepped out to the small ditch in front of the house, where the clear water was quietly flowing under the bamboo bridge. Bending down, Huyen filled the bucket with water and carefully carried it to the garden. Arriving at the lush vegetable beds, she gently watered around each plant and Appo's base. The cool water gradually soaked into the soil, causing the leaves to sway gently in the afternoon breeze. After finishing this bucket, Huyen turned back to the ditch to scoop another. In this way, she patiently cared for each vegetable bed as if tending to a precious family asset. Micah stood beside her watching her mother work, occasionally holding a small plastic basin to help water the plants. When the vegetable beds were thoroughly watered, Huyen set down the bucket, wiped the sweat from her forehead, and looked at the green garden in front of her, smiling with satisfaction. In the late afternoon sunlight, the small garden seemed full of life, promising a bountiful harvest for mother and daughter in the days to come. Huyen turned back into the house and picked up Micah. The girl wrapped her arms around her mother and Appo's neck and obediently rested her head on her shoulder for a while. Holding a hoe in her hand, Huyen stepped into the corn garden behind the house. The corn plants were growing lush and green in neat rows. She chose a patch of land between the rows and began to loosen the soil, gently mounding it around the roots to make it more friable. The sound of the hoe hitting the ground echoed steadily in the quiet afternoon. Despite working all afternoon, Huyen still diligently cared for her garden. While happily playing, Micah saw her mother working in the corn garden and ran over. The girl spread her arms wide to hug her mother and Appo's leg and coquettishly asked to be carried. Huyen laughed, put down the hoe, and bent down to carry Micah on her back. Micah and Appo's arms tightly hugged her mother and Appo's neck, and her little legs swung happily. Huyen continued to work the soil with the hoe, talking to her child as she did. End quote. Are you happy sitting on my back? End quote. End quote. Very happy, Mom. End quote. The little girl giggled happily, pressing her cheek against her mother and Appo's shoulder. Every time Huyen plowed the soil, Micah happily swayed to the rhythm of the movement. Occasionally, she would point at the butterflies flying across the corn rows and chirp happily, calling her mother to look. In the cool green cornfield, the laughter of the mother and daughter echoed endlessly. Huyen worked while carrying her child on her back, and Micah was cheerful as if playing an exciting game. Under the gentle afternoon sunlight, The image of the mother and daughter cuddling together made the small garden feel warm and full of love. As the evening gradually falls, Huyen puts the hoe into the corner of the house and takes Micah and Appo's hand to go into the kitchen. After a whole afternoon working in the garden, mother and daughter begin preparing dinner. Huyen sits down by the firewood stove, skillfully arranging the dry logs inside and then lighting a match. Soon the flames burst up with crackling sounds, spreading warmth throughout the small kitchen. Meanwhile, she takes a basket of rice, measures enough for dinner, and brings it out to wash thoroughly. Her nimble hands stir the rice evenly in the water, removing any remaining rice husks. After washing the rice, Huyen pours it into a pot, adds just enough water, and places the pot on the stove. The gentle smoke rises to the roof, carrying the familiar aroma of the evening meal. Beside her, Micah sits on a small chair, attentively watching her mother light the stove. The small dog also lies near the kitchen door, half-closed eyes enjoying the warmth from the fire. The sky gradually darkened, and the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the distant trees. The small kitchen became hazy in the dim evening light. Huyen approached the wooden shelf in the corner of the room and took down the familiar oil lamp. She carefully lit the wick. After a moment, a warm golden flame flickered to life, illuminating the simple house. The light reflected on the bamboo wall, creating shadows that swayed with each gentle breeze. Placing the oil lamp on the table, Huyen turned back to the glowing fire in the wood stove. The rice pot on the stove began to emit a pleasant aroma. Sitting by the wooden table under the warm yellow oil lamp, Micah gently swings her small legs and hums innocent songs that she remembers. Her clear voice echoes throughout the small house, sometimes in rhythm, sometimes adding a few improvised lines that make her burst into joyful laughter. Huyen is sitting by the firewood stove, listening to her sing, occasionally turning to smile. The fatigue of a long day seems to melt away when hearing that innocent singing. The oil lamp flickers gently with the breeze, illuminating Micah and Appo's radiant face. The small dog lying under the table also lifts its head to look at her, its ears perked up as if attentively listening. Meanwhile, Micah continues singing passionately, her sparkling eyes reflecting the light. The rice is cooked, and the fragrant aroma from the steaming pot spreads throughout the small house. Huyen lifts the pot down and sets the dinner on the wooden table in the middle of the house. The meal is very simple, consisting of only a plate of fresh boiled greens just picked from the garden and 2 carefully peeled boiled eggs. Huyen scoops some greens into Micah and Appo's bowl while Micah shares half of her egg with her mother. The mother and daughter eat and chat, their laughter occasionally echoing under the warm oil lamp. Although the meal is not elaborate, both of them eat very happily after a long day of work. Under the table, the small dog was also given a full bowl of rice by Huyen. It happily wagged its tail and ate its portion of rice eagerly. Seeing that, Micah chuckled happily, while Huyen smiled gently, looking at both her daughter and the dog. Outside, night had completely fallen. Inside the simple house, the 3 members gathered around a modest but warm meal. These were peaceful and happy moments that Huyen always cherished after difficult days. If everyone loves Huyen and Micah and Appo's mother and daughter, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and leave a word of encouragement for the 2 of them to see the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and strength to help Huyen get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.